All right, we'll get so, dude. We're just gonna have fun. I don't know where the fuck we're gonna end up. Is there? And feel free to intro anything you definitely want to get to. Is there anything you want us to know before we just start having a good firehouse chat here?
I mean, there's so much going on since we last talked. Shoot, I'm about to go to El Salvador here in a couple weeks, going to Bitcoin Beach. Super excited for that. Cool. Yeah, I got my node up and running. I'm starting to dip heavily into multi-sigs, the crazy space that is multi-sigs, McGillicuddy, triple stamp, quadruple backflip. You're just like, my buddy who's a dev, I was like, dude, how deep does it go? He's like, oh, dude, you're on the surface. I'm like, okay, so, just trying to not get dizzy from that.
You better stick the landing, or there goes your net worth, dude. Be careful.
Yeah, you gotta be careful, man. Hey, you know what the real danger of it too is that you never feel like it's complete. Like I'll finish one and be like, yeah, that's it for the next 10 years. And then like 3 months later, I'm like, ooh, I could have done that different, or maybe I'll change this up. And that's probably going to be my undoing because I'll end up fucking it up, changing it so many times, you know?
Yeah, I definitely am staying patient and, trying not to be the kid that rips the present open and brings the BB gun outside and just starts firing. So, like taking my time until I fully understand it and I'm juggling, with smart. My eyes closed. There's going to be nothing behind it. So, that's going on. Started writing more. I'm off the union now. So I was the president.
Got time
of the
again,
union.
Huh?
Dude, I'm sure we'll dip into this later, but the creativity, the free time, the ability to just explore things that I'm really passionate about, it has been unbelievable. I miss the union stuff tremendously. I don't know if you guys read the article I wrote. I'm trying to orange pill unions now and really work on education with the unions as far as Bitcoin. But it is nice to not be, have the burden of the whole department on my shoulders. It's amazing.
Yeah, I hear you, dude. It's a labor of love, that's for sure. Like our e-board, particularly our president and vice president position, I'd be interested to ask them, Josh, like how many hours a week they spend on it. There's always some new bullshit. Some guy did something stupid, or admins up someone's ass, or negotiations.
Yeah, dude. But, just the negotiations I helped with in the last couple of weeks, that was a ton of time. To show up, be there. And like they play these games where we're there for 20 minutes and you had to drive an hour to get there and back. And it's just, luckily we got it done and we got a good deal. But yeah, it's a pain in the dick.
So much of negotiations is attention to detail, fine tuning, just hours. You cannot escape proof of work, man. You cannot escape the work, and you're just, you can't let the other side outwork you, and you come in unprepared. So and now, in 2023, the burden on unions, I know we're going to get into pensions later. I know we're going to get into what's happening in the financial markets, but the pressures are greater than ever. I mean, they have the future of their members in their hands, and it's a lot of pressure for sure.
Yeah. Well, as Josh can articulate, the workload has diminished with ChatGPT.
Let's save that for the episode. Let's talk about it.
I figure we're into it right now, dude.
We might as well. Yeah, during negotiations, I had my laptop there taking notes, and I was like, I bet I could use ChatGPT to give me a little edge here. So they would bring an argument point up, and I would look up the Illinois law using it and find the specific point that I was looking for, and it was magnificent. This thing just nailed it, and I'm sitting there looking like I've researched for like a lawyer when really all I'm doing is asking this fucking AI to tell me exact points I'm looking for. It was awesome, and they were like completely caught off guard because they had no idea how the fuck I was pulling the shit out of my ass. It was epic.
A beautiful thing.
That pumps me up so much to just know that you're in negotiations using ChatGPT as it's intended. Like it's. It's interesting, that's come up a lot in spaces. And of course, there's the boogeyman thing with the AI is going to become Skynet and the Terminator machines are going to come get us. I get that. But I've been messing around with it and the sky's the limit, really. I mean, it's nothing greater than what it is. But like you just said, at your fingertips is so cool. That's classic. Did they know you were using it? Did you ever tell them?
No,
Like, hey,
nobody knew actually. The rest of the board was like, what the fuck, man? Like I told them afterwards, because I was like, I can't pretend I'm a genius. Like this thing, I mean, the leverage that you get out of that, especially now, while people are not really privy to it, especially older people, like you could just really run rampant around them. You could run circles around them because they just don't know what you're doing. I mean, it's a superpower right now. But
it's an
in 5 or 10 years, it won't
tool. Yeah.
Well, you know what's also interesting with it right now is the barrier to you is creativity, right? Because at first you go, what's this dumb thing where I type in 2 words and it makes a story? And you go, wait a minute, dude. Mm-hmm. Like you can do some crazy stuff and create a story of something that you never have the time or interest in writing, or like you said, getting an essay on something
or just having it help you build the bare bones of something. Like, here's an idea, maybe this thing can help me outline it, and then you take it from there. It's just it's a leverage point, you know, and it's incredibly useful.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us have any idea where this is going exactly, but it's scary and really cool at the same time.
Yes, it is.
The inflationary pressure it's going to put on the world is going to be like nothing else we've ever seen.
Yeah. No.
Believe that.
By the way, if anyone listening is worried right now at this stage of the episode, thinking like, oh my God, these guys are literally going to talk about complete random bullshit the entire hour, those fears are well-founded. We are probably going to talk about random bullshit for the entire hour because we don't have a career firefighter in here every week, Dom, and gloves are completely off, folks. This is the first time Josh and I are truly and completely in our own element.
It's pre-lineup coffee hour over here, and no one's safe.
Yep, exactly. We had this mandatory training we had to do the other day, and it was funny because very out of the norm where we have to sit down for 4 hours straight and get talked at about something. And I'm sure you guys have been through this too, but it was it's not a funny topic, but we're gonna make it funny anyway. It was a suicide prevention talk that we had to sit through for 4 hours, and it was good, but it was a lot of talk about feelings. And as you know, at the firehouse, feelings are not exactly the thing that we talk. I mean, we bust people's balls, we play games, but feelings, like the real shit, like maybe with like a couple of your good buddies, but you don't really just like leave that out on the table for everybody. And it was funny because there was a guy who was clearly uncomfortable, an older gentleman, and they focused on him at one point. They're like, what are you going to do if one of your guys comes to you and says he's going to kill himself? And he's like, people know not to talk to me about feelings. It just stonewalls them completely. And they're like, oh shit, now we're focusing on this guy because he's definitely the peg we're going to have to slam in. So they're really like trying to dig it out of him. Like, no, you got to, that's the whole point of this. Like we want you to talk about what's going on. He's like, no, I don't talk about this stuff. I don't engage with this stuff, and people know it. And ask me about the engine. I'll tell you all about the engine, but don't talk to me about my feelings. It was like Tommy Gavin from Rescue Me, that sensitivity training episode where he storms out. It was just classically hilarious from the perspective I was taking.
Literally manifested the entire point of the whole class. Like the dysfunction of emotional maturity was just on display in front of everybody.
I'm guessing that guy is not going to get nominated to the peer support team. I'm just going out on a limb.
Maybe not. Yeah, he might not be the guy.
Yeah, dude. There's people for that, and there's folks we know that are good. So yeah, that's classic.
You guys talk about a lot of feelings on the West Coast, though, right? Like you guys are big on feelings.
Hey, we're starting to become more advanced. We have the barrier's been up for a long time, but folks can just there's a lot of support. I mean you bring up a great point because it's something that for firefighters we've always been like, hey, I'm tough, I'm strong. I'm not going to have a breakdown. Yet we do some crazy stuff. I mean,
we do.
Just the waking up, just not sleeping normally could make someone lose their mind. Cooking for 10 people while running calls and being made fun of because your meal sucks. That can make you start getting messed up. Seeing the stuff we see on calls. Like people getting hurt bad, packaging that all up and just going like, forget about it. So it's moving forward, but there still is, of course, that instinct to be like, come on, like feelings,
it manifests itself with a twisted, sick sense of humor that you bring to the coffee table every morning and make fun of. I mean, people are like, oh shit, you remember that guy that was all fucked up? And it's all, I mean, no one actually thinks it's funny that somebody got fucked up, but it's the way that you kind of engage it with levity, because otherwise what are you going to do? Cry about it? And that's just the way I think a lot of people are able to absorb and then get over and deal with the horrible shit that you have to see from time to time.
And we got to move on. Like the tones drop again. You get done with a cardiac arrest, like the tones are probably going off in the next hour. So you have to find a way to move on. The sleep thing, though, I think I'm the baby of the crew here. I've only been on for 7 years or shy of 7 years. But I think I'm starting to realize, especially raising a young family, like the sleep thing is very real. Hence the venti Starbucks here. We were up a couple times last night. Actually, pretty legit call at 4:30. Compound open fracture of the ankle. Boys did a great job. My boy Chuck came in, sniped the IV, gave some narcotics, took care of this lady. But it adds up, dude. Like I was actually looking at my Garmin sleep statistics, and you can, it's clear as day when I'm on duty. It's like, oh my God, you got no sleep that night, caught up, no sleep. And it starts to add up, especially when you can't fully recover the next day. So if I'm limping around, gentlemen, I'm doing my best here. We got venti iced, light cream, couple pumps of sugar. So I think I'm good to go here. Where are you on the cadence of your shift, by the way? You guys are 2 on, 4 off, or how do you run, Dom?
Yeah, 4896. I'm in mid-city right now. Once I got off the Union, I got a nice gift of going from a slower station to the war zone. So that's like a nice farewell present. So yeah, waking up. I mean, we had one the other night where we had 7 calls after midnight, and it was 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6:30. And I was like, dude, I'm done. Like, that's it.
Wait, how do you guys survive 48 hours of that kind of cadence? Like that's horrendous.
Luckily, that was a really bad night, and it was it was raining, so we had some automatic alarms, right? Which is an easier call. I always tell people it's not just waking up. You say, Dan, you went on a compound fracture. Like what your mind goes through to go from sleep to packaging someone's leg that's sticking out of their skin and their bone. It's not like, for us it's routine, but your body goes through a lot to get to that level to be proficient at doing that. So those calls are more impactful. So, luckily 6 is not, normal. We usually get a couple, 2 or 3. But you got to get rest. We stay busy on our off days, but in reality, our off days are for recovery. That's what the job was meant for. Yeah. But we're ambitious, we're fun loving. So we want to go on an adventure. We want to learn about Bitcoin, do some cool stuff. But in reality, that next day is just a sleep day. You're just trying to recover. So, we get through it.
The Bitcoin conference is coming this May in Miami, and you do not want to miss out. Dan and I will be there. This 3-day event is the ultimate destination for anyone looking to stay ahead of the curve and work in the industry. Industry Day tickets are available for those who want to network with like-minded professionals and learn from the top experts in the field. For those who want the ultimate VIP experience, the Whale Pass is the way to go. With exclusive access to private events and top-level speakers, you'll get the inside scoop on the latest trends and insights in the industry. So why wait? Get your tickets now and join us at the Bitcoin conference in Miami, where the future of finance is being shaped today. Use code BCB23 to get 10% off tickets, and we will see you in Miami.
Don't you guys feel like, Josh and I talk about this a lot, that your expectations based on the station you're at dictate your reaction to night calls? Like, we have 3 stations. We're a lot smaller than you guys. So 2 of our stations are pretty damn busy. Probably similar to you said, you're expecting to be up 2-3 times, 1, 2, 3 times a night, but you're rarely sleeping. But we have 1 of our 3 stations that's staffed lighter, that runs less than 1,000 calls a year. It's super quiet. Feels like a completely different department. But this station has a way of making you just a lazy piece of shit the moment you walk through the door. Like, you're just expecting not to run, right? So, like, last night I was at the quiet station, and the tones go off, and you're like, who has the fucking audacity to have a medical emergency in the middle of my night's sleep? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
especially at the slow station.
Exactly. How dare
it's
they?
all
Don't
about
they know?
Expectations, man. all about expectations.
Yeah.
Hey, that's another thing. Even if you sleep at a busy station, you're sleeping in fear. You're like kind of sleeping there, like, okay, what's going on? You know, you wake up like, did I miss something? You know, and then the flip side, you're at the slow station, and like you said, you get a call, and you're like, this is an outrage. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, I'll stay up late at the busier station just because I have this expectation, like, why bother? I'm going to get up anyway. And then I go to bed late and actually sleep, and I'm like, fuck, I should have gone to sleep at a reasonable time. And then vice versa, you try to go to sleep early, and then you just get your ass kicked in all night.
Yeah.
Can't win, man. Cannot win.
Oh.
Dom, something I don't think we've engaged with you on is, like, tell us your Bitcoin story. Like, where did you get started with this?
Yeah, so I know I read your guys' bio, and I think I saw 2017. For me, a similar time. I think it was like 2016, 2017. I actually worked this. I think I joked around about it last conference, and you know, don't kill me on this. I worked an Ethereum conference. Okay.
All right, let's end this, Josh.
That's it. That's it. It's over. Now, remember though, I didn't really have a good grasp on anything regarding Bitcoin.
We were the same, dude. We were buying Ethereum back in 2017.
We were buying way shittier things than Ethereum in 2017.
Yeah. So 2016, 2017, I go to this conference and I'm blown away by everyone I talk to, everyone. And at that time, there weren't a lot of altcoins. There were a lot of tokens, but they called themselves more like platforms than tokens that were building on Ethereum. There was even an emergency person there that was doing something with like 911 stuff. So I was talking to a bunch of people, and my biggest takeaway from this was the people involved in this are smart, and they're extremely committed to what they're doing. And that's very powerful when you have talented people that are very committed. Started learning more, of course, found my way to Bitcoin, really quickly realized that Bitcoin was the original, was, the best of the pack, was like what we're all here for. Started reading more, got involved. A big aha moment for me was getting a ledger, getting self-custodied, and realizing like, oh my God, like I have this thing, regardless of what it is or what it may be worth, that is like under my control completely. No one can take it. It's not reliable upon the financial system. I don't need a bank. I have it there, and I can use it as long as someone will take it. Even if they won't take it at the time, I can hold it. There's other things around it. So that was like a big aha moment for me. Still, from there, I fell down the rabbit hole of some alts, started learning more about tokens, got involved in other projects, Web3 stuff, NFTs. But always under the preface that Bitcoin is the king, right? This is all, fun to kind of like dip toes, but like Bitcoin's the one. And I knew why it was the one. And so that allowed me to venture in other areas with like a very clear, sound mind.
Right.
Fast forward.
Sorry, I just want to interject with a little quick story here. So it's important for people that enter this space, if they hear this or whatever, but the primary thing here is Bitcoin. Like, take the majority stake in that. With whatever money you set aside for this, if you want to play games and all these other things, that's cool. Maybe you'll get lucky, maybe you won't, but understand that money is very likely going to go away. We just went up to this Bitcoin meetup in Milwaukee. There were probably like 50 people there, and this one dude cornered me. Dan was talking to somebody else. I got cornered by this guy who looked like the pirate from Dodgeball, the guy with red hair, the crazy pirate. He looked like totally like he had a problem. He was like going on about NFTs with me, and I was like, they're cool, man, but just not something I want to put my money in. And he's going like manic on me, and he's like, dude, look at this. He takes his phone out. He's showing me his phone. He's like, I've got all these NFTs and they're not worth shit. I lost all my fucking money. And I'm like, is this guy going to stab me? Like, this guy is crazy. And he's like just completely dejected, and he lost what seems like a majority of his net worth buying NFTs. So don't do anyone listening, just, keep it at arm's length, play games if you want, but don't go all in on that kind of shit.
Yeah. I think like one of my goals in this conversation, and we don't have to do it all at this second, but is to talk about the pitfalls and concerns about average folks and finance moving forward. Now, for the last 40 years, it hasn't been good to waste your money on stupid hollow vapid projects. However, in today's day and age, with growing inflationary concerns, more instability economically, I think my base case is that people are going to have even less money to waste. Like, money is holistically going to be tighter for firefighters and wage earners and average folks probably for the next couple decades than it has been the last couple decades. And I think, we say this all the time on the show, but I'll say it every fucking episode. That's why we care so much, because there are people out there that aren't just doing this for fun with $50. They're doing it with $5 or $15 or $20 or $40,000 that they cannot afford to lose. And the time value of money could make that a really significant thing for them and their family and their retirement and their whatever. So, I mean, there's story after story about people losing significant money. Us being one of them to some extent. Like, yes, we were the same as you, Dom, where we understood Bitcoin was the main event and this stuff was kind of fringe, but I still had more than nothing in it. Like, I wish I hadn't gotten distracted by Verge coin, right? And I hope other people can avoid that same pitfall, but that's easier said than done. Like, pain is the great teacher. And whoever that guy was at that meetup, like, that might have been the only thing that'll really teach him that JPEGs on a blockchain maybe aren't a great idea as an investment vehicle.
At least not with all your money.
Yeah.
Yeah. For folks that are in altcoins, hey, you have to learn and understand Bitcoin at a deep level at a minimum. You just have to be, because it's one thing if there's a token. And look, I do think there are different applications in the space that maybe, tap into community, other things. But it's important to know that those things are not going to compete or any way replicate sound money financial system that is Bitcoin. And if you know that, and there's a coin that tracks goats and they put a chip in their ear and it's connected to a token, maybe that's what draws you there, but you shouldn't be looking at that thinking that that's going to take over the financial system and people are going to believe in that with faith and invest in it. And it's going to, it's not Bitcoin. So that's real important. And like you said, Dan, one of the things that was so huge, and this kind of ties into my Bitcoin story, what I went through with Zach and the Pacific Bitcoin conferences in 23, I was so blown away by that conference. Like I call it like my re-orange pilling, like just that extra little, like, yes, okay, this is like my core. This is why I'm here. Is Bitcoiners want to see you succeed by understanding Bitcoin and knowing about it and finding a way to get involved, versus altcoins. There's always potentially ulterior motives. They want the token to succeed, or for whatever reasons, whether it's, vested interest, et cetera. And I've always, I've never found a Bitcoiner that doesn't want you to understand what it is and is just like, just buy. No Bitcoiner has ever said, just buy it. You don't need to understand it. Like, maybe you get frustrated trying to explain it and go, just trust me. But that's not really the stance of Bitcoiners. They want you to understand it.
Yeah, that's a very important point. And I think Dan and I have come to that realization, which is 2017, I would just tell people, buy some Bitcoin. And we found out very quickly that they would do that, but then they would very quickly, either sell it at a small profit, or even worse, sell it when it was down and lose their money, or lose some portion of their money. The important thing here is to make sure that people actually take ownership of it, learn about it, understand why it is that you want to own some of this, not just that you should own it because you're going to get rich in some, distant future maybe. Like, that is not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to bring sound money back to the world, make the world responsible again in many ways, which it has not been in a long time. And once you have that core understanding, then holding on to an asset like this is a much easier proposition. And also when you don't get yourself in way over your head way too early. And, there's tons of other avenues to go down with that, but it's basically inherently, the problem is you have to understand this thing first, then you can start dipping your toe in the water and owning it.
Yeah. I like, Dom, the nuance with which you're embracing the subject, though. And I think like, I am averse to sort of cultish, groupthinky, dogmatic behavior in Bitcoin that literally labels the rest of crypto as always evil and malevolent. You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily that way for, I mean, there are projects that are just outright and complete scams, total snake oil. There's others that aren't. That's a giant spectrum. But at the very least, I think the way we size it up is that the rest of this crypto system is, to put it kindly, very speculative, unproven, and extremely risky. And on the other side of things, if you're new to Bitcoin, you may perceive it that same way. We've reached a point where we don't necessarily view it that way. We actually think that because of growing risk in today's system, escalating counterparty risk, escalating currency debasement risk, and inflation risk, Bitcoin is an obvious and necessary hedge, like insurance in a way, against your portfolio. It's kind of it's the risk protection, right? Not the risk in and of itself. In a lot of ways, it's the exact opposite of the rest of the crypto space. But that takes a long time to unpack.
Yeah.
And some horses just don't want to be led to water.
The more you learn, you view Bitcoin as hysterically safe, to the point where you might laugh a little bit out loud because you're like, oh my gosh. And a lot of it has to do with the self-custody, not the price. The fact that I have this and it's mine. The price can go to $1 million in 90 days. It can go to $9 in one day. I still have all of it. Yeah. It's not an asset that someone else has where it may be worth whatever, and I have none of it really. That's what's so great about it. And the more you learn about it, realize that it is digital money and the digital monetary system of the future. You know, you feel like I'm safe, man. I'm just like, man, I'm so relaxed.
The world's learning a lesson in counterparty risk, and over the last 2 weeks, I don't think anyone in the United States has actually put any real thought into the fact that your bank is counterparty risk, even though there might be insurance there. Like, this thing can potentially go sideways on you. They can get themselves over-levered. They might not hedge their risks properly. And you can potentially be a depositor that is fucked in that situation, especially if you have over $250,000 there. So one of the most important tenets of Bitcoin to understand for people is that there is absolutely no counterparty risk in this situation of owning Bitcoin, in the same way, unless you're holding it with like a BlockFi or Celsius or any custodian. That obviously you have counterparty risk there. But assuming you're taking actual possession of your Bitcoin, you have no counterparty risk, zero. And that is a realization that I think the world is starting to come to. And this is the only asset in the world where that is a true statement, unless you're custodying gold in your basement. But then you have a real risk of somebody coming and robbing you, which Bitcoin disintermediates that problem as well in a lot of ways. So Bitcoin being this obelisk in the world of like counterparty risk is a massive, massive thing that the world is probably slowly going to realize. But I think as these risks, these systemic risks, move their way through the economy, it becomes more and more obvious that counterparty risk is a much bigger deal than we've had to really deal with in 100 years in this country.
Yeah, no, and that's nails right there. And it makes me think of is Joe Carlasari? Is that how you pronounce his last name? He's always on Spaces, super sharp. He had a good post about how, you know, Bitcoin shouldn't be called insurance.
Saw that.
And I thought it was really, you know, it's like, I thought it was great because one of the things that excites me so much about Bitcoin is that it's the future, that the community is thriving, that it's vibrant, that it's an innovation that's incredible. Like, you know, and I know you guys talked about it. Sometimes there can be a lot of venom towards altcoins. And I think that stems from the ones that are scams. People don't like to see people hurt, and it gets people angry. But a lot of the bad stuff that's going on in the financial markets, like, you know, for me right now, I'm just so excited to be learning about Bitcoin, being involved in the community, growing my involvement, because it's the future. And that really helps me with less anxiety about the current system. And that's coming from someone who has his pension tied up in a very large institution and cog of that financial machine in CalPERS, the largest pension fund in the country. And yet, even with what little I have, I feel comfortable, and I'm not looking at it as a hedge for that. I'm just happy to be involved in the future.
Dan and myself, Josh, talk a lot on this show about running a Bitcoin node. If you are a serious Bitcoiner and you want to verify, not trust, you will take this step at some point. For our node setups, we run software and hardware from Start9 Labs. This setup enables us to run a reliable and secure Bitcoin node. But then, if we so choose, experiment and graduate way beyond that towards many different areas of sovereign computing. You can download Embassy OS for free and install it on your own hardware, or you can buy one of Start9's plug-and-play devices. We highly recommend these devices. Start9 builds reliable and extremely easy-to-use products backed up with incredible customer support. Run a Bitcoin node, run a Lightning node, run a NOSTR relay. Take control of your photos, messages, passwords, pictures, and data, all on one device. Embassy OS operating system is the distribution platform open source software has been waiting for. Visit start9.com. We only recommend and endorse companies that we believe in, and Swan Bitcoin is a company we believe in. I have been personally using Swan to DCA into Bitcoin since May of 2020, when Bitcoin was the wee price of $9,500. Swan's interface and on-ramp is incredibly simple and user-friendly. With Swan, you can dollar cost average daily, weekly, or monthly, or conduct a smash instant buy whenever you want. Withdrawals to cold storage are completely free and can be totally automated. Truly set and forget. Swan wants you to hold your Bitcoin keys, and support is one click or phone call away if you need help during this process. Buying Bitcoin is just the tip of the iceberg. Swan also has a Bitcoin IRA product, business and nonprofit offerings, resources for financial advisors, private services for high net worth clients, and phenomenal educational materials. Visit swan.com for more information. And at swan.com/fire, you can learn about and receive Swan Premium for 1 year.
Dude, I think that's a great segue. Like, so back to the Bitcoin as insurance thought. We were talking about this with Jan Pritzker. Like, you need to analogize Bitcoin for specific people in specific ways. There's no perfect way to explain this thing, and you're often explaining anything this complex or significant metaphorically, which is true of Bitcoin too. So the insurance metaphor, we could say, I think is apt for certain people, and I think it actually does work quite well for our demographic, firefighters. You just hinted at this a second ago. Like, this is a group of individuals that is deeply entrenched in the current system. Okay? Like, many career firefighters are completely reliant on their pension, and maybe the only thing they have outside of that is probably an undersized allocation to like a 457 plan or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And I have some stats on that system for you later if you want.
Okay.
To. Yeah.
So but all of that money is wrapped up heavily and deeply in the current system, and I guess if we were to get into more of the allocations in there, heavily wrapped into the bond market and fixed income, which there's a lot. We won't, fearmonger here, but there's a lot of concern about the viability of the bond market and fixed income in an environment where there's enormous sovereign debt loads that have very few solutions to unwind. So a way that we have approached explaining Bitcoin, and I'm curious if you've done the same or if you have any different tactics, is to say this is a wonderful hedge position or quote unquote small piece of insurance that you can take out against your pension. Like, and if the pension system and the global financial system and the bond market really meaningfully implodes in a way that totally hampers what you expected you were going to get into perpetuity, this asset is in a lot of ways designed to perform in that environment. So, like, describing it as a form of insurance for a firefighter could make sense to get them to start small and sort of view it that way. Have you ever done that? Do you have any thoughts on that? And then we can, I guess, more broadly open it up to, like, what tactics the three of us use to try to get through to average folks who aren't spending hours every week researching Bitcoin and economics.
Yeah, 100%, Dan. I've explained it like that a lot. Since thinking about it more, how I'm starting to explain it more is it is an amazing innovation an amazing thing to be a part of and invest in for long term because of what it is. And it has many hedge and insurance type benefits to it. It's not a vehicle or instrument of that because it does not rely on the collapse of CalPERS. It does not rely on the collapse of the dollar. It is the future of digital money as we know it, and it will move forward even if those institutions stay intact. However, if they do collapse, you can rest assured, like a giant kind of chunk of something moving through, it will absorb much of the fallout from that thing. We're looking at it right now in some of the bank issues, the retreat from the dollar. And it's funny, there's been a lot of conversation, of course, about the whole $1 million Bitcoin in 90 days. And people kind of often talk about like, well, I don't want to see everything collapse and that be so violent. But for those that understand the big picture and how much of pie is actually out there, I don't want to say it's going to get to 1,090,000 because price is whatever. Look at it more as the more it absorbs into its system, price will be reflected. And it's not going to, there's so many places right now that Bitcoin stands to benefit from, whether it's pensions, turbulence in banking, flight from the dollar, more institutions that want to have safe, reliable, strong monetary digital infrastructure. There's so many areas, the bonds, metals that, you talked about the pirate. Maybe he must have been a gold guy because pirates, that's what I think of when I think of metals. No offense to the gold bugs. Yeah. I know. I just don't have it. So I'm jealous. I get it. Peter Schiff, one love. But there's so many areas that Bitcoin can absorb buy-in from, and the price is secondary. So that's kind of long story short. I kind of explain it to them now as it has hedge-like insurance-like properties, but rest assured you don't need that to happen. It'll be there if you need it for this to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, like CalPERS, just think about the layers of counterparty risk that are there for that pension fund, for our pension fund. There's layers and layers of people that are administering, each one of the individual funds, the overall fund. There's the entire bond market. There's I'm sure they're in real estate. They're in all kinds of things, which is great for diversity. But the problem is that the problem we might actually have is a problem of trust in general.
Yes.
And when trust breaks down overall, all of this snowball of trust that has to be built on top of each other breaks down. And we hope, and I don't think it'll happen in a very quick fashion. It's not going to happen in 3 months, very unlikely. But over the course of 20 years, these types of things can cascade. And I think Bitcoin is sitting in a very advantageous spot to take advantage of trust breaking down, hopefully in a slow, methodical way through this whole system. Keeping in mind, like, the two primary risks I see for our pension funds are currency risk and counterparty risk. And both of those, there's no other investment that you can meaningfully buy that can protect you from bad positions or just bad happenings in either one of those besides Bitcoin. And gold is, I was a gold bug for quite a long time. The problem it has, though, is it's just an ancient relic. Like it doesn't take trust from another party, but it has to be centralized because unless you're going to take actual custody of this shit, nobody wants to put their life worth of gold in their basement. Like you're just going to get... Someone's going to rob your ass.
Elon is not going to ship a bunch of gold to Mars when he starts building cities out there. The fuel costs are too high. Much easier to just bring a thumb drive and be like, hey, you know what I mean? Like it's gold, I think, had a good run. I'm not saying it's always going to be there. There's a generational thing kind of going on. Yeah. But even that has aspects of manipulation and counterparty risk, like you said.
Yep, all because of centralization there. Yeah.
Here's some stats on CalPERS for you since we're talking about pensions. And I know one of the pre-questions. So in 2021, CalPERS was sitting at about 81% funded. And for those listening that don't understand, that means that if they were called to all of their assets owed at the time, they would be 19% short. Now, the way, as you guys know, the way they make up for that is cities are charged, and that's cities and taxpayers pretty much, are charged to catch up to the 100% funding status. I think the number in 2022, I want to say, don't quote me on this, was 72%, a pretty hard drop. And that was on the tail end of one of the, I would say if you look at the equities market from the financial crisis to pre-COVID, one of the most dream runs you've ever seen. And still it's not funded up to 100%.
Right.
I think equity returns are going to be tougher. CalPERS recently kind of said we got to get into more VC stuff, venture capital stuff. Their first year returns on that was like 0.5%. So nothing impressive at all. It's a $500 billion fund. Here's another stat. They did take a hit on this banking turmoil. They had,
they had exposure, right?
Peanuts for them, 67 million in Silicon Valley and 11 million in Signature Bank. However, peanuts add up. And they lost, I don't know, 78 million. If I went right now and tried to convince CalPERS to just buy 10 million of Bitcoin, I would get laughed out of the room and probably carried out by a security guard, yet there's money being lost, 100% lost. And I guess
the other thing with that too is like, you've got the Fed stepping in and backstopping a lot of this stuff and probably making a lot of these depositors whole. But that flips over to the other risk that Josh just mentioned a second ago, which on a long enough time frame when nothing's allowed to burn away, now we're into the currency risk, which is probably an even bigger pension risk. So like as pensions get bailed out, that's a signal, like that's a flare that the ship's going down in the other direction. You know what I'm saying? It's like both are telling a different story. Maybe one on a longer time frame that's more insidious and one that's more obvious. But there's two. We're getting flanked from both sides here.
Yeah, and they also, CalPERS, like many pensions, have huge cornerstone investments in commercial real estate, retail, office. That's another just danger zone. And you all know, because you ride a fire engine through the city and you know your city and you look around. I can tell you in my city, which was at one point the commercial real estate crown jewel, maybe of the world, there's vacancies. There's vacancies everywhere. And if you're a company, your Santa Monica office is like your showcase, like, all right, this is like, here it is. And there's a lot of vacancies and with the rates going up, the typical refinancing using equity, that's only going to last so long. Right. And if there's not a return, it's more trouble for the pensions. So
a lot of those, what's going to be interesting about that, is there's so much impairment going on because the interest rates have gone up. The loans that they get on those commercial real estate loans are generally 5 to 10 years with a balloon payment at the end. So somebody who got a loan, say 5 years ago, it's got a balloon payment coming up, say this year, they can't refi because they can't afford that property at 6 or 7%.
Right.
They can't sell it because nobody's buying that shit. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to keep an eye on in the next couple of years. I think sooner than later, based on some research I did today.
When I see the banking stuff, it pales in comparison to like some of the hazards I see for commercial real estate, both retail, which, Anchor Blue, the Gap, where they're selling, shirts and jeans. I don't think those places are coming back. Office space has another challenge. Maybe there is some return. I know a lot of companies are demanding people to come back to work, but will it ever reach the capacity where you have 1,000 people, on each floor just stacked doing office work?
I don't know.
There's a lot of bogeys in that zone.
Dude, some great points, Dom. Like,
I'm getting smarter, huh? Y'all are like, dude, from last time we talked to you, you were dumb, but Bitcoin makes you smarter.
Dude,
okay. Never said that.
Never, Dom. You're the most brilliant individual we've ever. You shit on Lynn Alden's intelligence. It's not even close.
No. Dude.
Okay, so here's what I love that we've explored here. Like, we've just named a ton of reasons, like a ton of risks and exposures. Lots of bond exposure, bank exposure, real estate exposure. I would also say demographics exposure, like firefighters are living longer. Mm-hmm. What this gets down to, and this is such a tricky subject, pensions. Josh and I have recorded a couple episodes on pensions in specific, and we've said, like, before recording, like, nobody's going to like this conversation, because your average Bitcoiner that's listening thinks that the fact that we get a pension in the first place is a complete joke. It's highway robbery. That's one end. The other end is firefighters are like, how dare you talk this way about what we're entitled to, right? Those are the two extremes. I'm going to talk to the firefighter side right now. We can maybe flip to the other side if we want. But I think one thing that I graciously push against, because we're not rooting for these things to implode. We're here to defend them. And I think this is another conversation, but I think there is strong rationale that if anybody's entitled to this rich of a benefit, it's probably first responders and military. Like, we're asked to do something different than other careers. And I'm not wanting to put us on an overly high hero pedestal, but if your house catches on fire, you're expecting the three of us to show up and risk our lives. We have families and kids, and go risk our lives to protect yours. I think there is a different onus and responsibility that comes with that for us. And there's the argument can be made that there's reasons we should be protected. Having said that, the math needs to work. Like Josh and I will say to people, this pension is either going to perform or it's going to perish. And perish could be, it doesn't necessarily mean we won't get what we're said, that could happen. Or it could also be they tear this out and firefighters of the future don't get it. But this notion that, like, they say we're getting it, we're guaranteed to get it, like, that doesn't hold up over a long period of time.
The depositors at SVB were guaranteed to get their money out too, right?
Exactly. The math has to work. And if the math's not working, this is not going to hold together. Like, the reason so many pensions have failed and why many more will fail and cease to exist is that they don't really work mathematically anymore. Like, they worked during a 40-year bond bull market that is over. It is so much harder to uphold these guarantees than used to be. And we need to be cognizant of that. And so we have to we also have to recognize that the burden falls on the taxpayer. So there's this other notion that, like, well, if the ratios deteriorate and the unfunded liabilities go up, they'll just tax more. It's like, everyone else is pinched too. Tax burdens are already exorbitant. And so eventually, like, the public will vote these out, right? The legislators are ultimately the ones that decide if we get these or not. And if the tax burdens go astronomical, which they've done, by the way, our pension here in this state is way more expensive on the taxpayer than it was 30 years ago. For all these reasons, I guess there's two things. We need to be very responsible with the money that we have in these pensions, number one. And that might be why the three of us would advocate for a Bitcoin position at some point in the future, as hard as that's going to be and as much red tape as we're going to have to cut through. And then on the other side, just pleading with our peers to protect yourself. Make sure you're freeing up your cash flow, buying assets yourself outside of this pension, Bitcoin being one of them, because there's a lot of unknowns here, and the guarantees are a lot flimsier than I think a lot of firefighters believe they are.
Yeah, Dan, that's on point right there. You know, as we get older, we learn that the worst transaction you can make is trading time for money. Right. And firefighters trade much more than time for money. They trade their well-being, they trade their health, and for some, they trade their life for the job. And, you know, one of the things we talk about a lot is how can Bitcoin benefit the working class? And this is kind of a quote that I've been throwing around, is if you're going to trade your time for money, that money better stand up over time. It better stand up over time, because it's the worst transaction you can make. And we talk about if anyone deserves the pension, these firefighters, these first responders that put it all on the line. And what do they get? If they're lucky, 55 and older, they can live out the rest of their life without having to work, and they're taken care of. Now, you know, I wish that for everyone on the planet, all workers. But you know what I mean? Like, gosh, we care about this stuff because I don't want to see workers trade their time for money and their money not stand up over time, and them get to the finish line and they go, hey, here's a shovel, back to work, my friend. It didn't work out like we thought. And so, yes, we have to take personal onus to prepare, you know, make sure we're in a good spot so we can trade less money for time. And, you know, obviously, Bitcoin is the solution to, if you're going to trade time for money and roll that into Bitcoin, Bitcoin will stand the test of time. I do believe that wholeheartedly, along with, of course, many others.
Yeah, that's a really wise thing that you said there. The unfortunate thing for so many people is that that kind of wisdom doesn't really develop until you're maybe in your mid-30s if you're lucky. Some people maybe even a little bit later, and by the time they realize it, they're like, oh shit, I have severely fucked up my financial future. And then they try to catch up, but the problem is back to time. Like, this is all about time. So if you were responsible and you started saving money at say 20 years old and you invest even fairly well, 5% compounding over that period of time, you're going to be okay. But if you're 45 years old and you haven't saved a dime and you don't have a pension and you have nothing to back you up, you're kind of fucked. I mean, even if you max out everything you can, Roth IRAs, a 401k, everything, you're still going to be skin of your teeth if you're lucky. And a lot of people just don't have the disposable income because they're massive consumers. They bought a car they can't afford. They got a house they can't afford. They've got $200 a month to save. There's just no way you're going to do it unless you downsize massively and really get your shit together. But yeah, that's why it's so imperative and so important that these new guys that we get on our department, we try to give them as much of a semblance of a financial education as we can, encourage them to put their money away. When I was young, I had a guy I started working when I was like 19, and I remember a dude that I worked with who was like, you need a 401k, you need to put the money in now. And that guy really helped me out because I actually listened to him at 19 and it worked out. I mean, I could have done a lot better, but I did really well because I listened to this guy. So these mentors that you have in your life, hopefully you get a good one, and hopefully you have the ability to be a mentor to somebody else in whatever capacity you can. But financially, if you listen to this, get these young guys to put some money away. Whether it's Bitcoin or not, anything's better than nothing.
One of the most exciting companies and projects that Josh and myself, Dan, have come across in the last few years is Crowd Health. If you're already familiar with Crowd Health and have interest in checking it out, then use code BLUE for a significant 3-month trial discount. Healthcare is an incredibly confusing, stressful, and cumbersome space to navigate. Crowd Health provides a remarkable and workable alternative to traditional healthcare setups for a fraction of typical premiums. It's essentially the decentralization of healthcare. You can leverage the power of Bitcoin alongside healthcare crowdfunding to put decisions about your health back in your hands. Each member gets access to great healthcare services as well as their own dedicated care advocate that will negotiate your bills and find members the best doctors and hospitals. Go to joincrowdhealth.com to learn more. And if you're interested in the Bitcoin-specific crowdfund, go to joincrowdhealth.com/Bitcoin. BCB listeners can enjoy healthcare freedom with code BLUE to get your first 3 months for a substantial discount at $99 a month. That is code BLUE. Crowd Health is not health insurance, which we feel is a wonderful thing. If you have healthcare needs or concerns, seriously, give Crowd Health a look. The Blue Collar Bitcoin podcast is brought to you by arguably the most legendary company in Bitcoin, CoinKite. They are the producers of the renowned Cold Card, the world's most trusted and secure Bitcoin signing device, built with a plethora of features fit for Bitcoin beginners all the way up to the most advanced of users. This device is a one-stop shop for your Bitcoin custody needs, and something the two of us have trusted for years. CoinKite also manufactures the Block Lock, a gorgeous e-ink digital display art piece sitting in the background of what seems to be every serious Bitcoiner on the planet. Block Lock can be programmed to scroll through key Bitcoin metrics including price, hash rate, next halving date, and much more. Boy, oh boy, will this thing look good in your living room or office. They're also the makers of many other security and fun products for all users, no matter their technical aptitude. Support our show and get a delicious discount on CoinKite products by following our affiliate link on the screen and in the notes, and using code BCB for 5% off the Cold Card.
Right.
You know what's interesting? Someone asked me the other day, hey, when Bitcoin hit a high of 60K and then it dropped, how did you fare in the fire department for people you talk to? There's that running joke like me at Christmas dinner bringing up, like where the family's pissed that you got them in. But something interesting happened this last run up. And for those that have been a part of many cycles, we get smarter each cycle. Every firefighter, every worker I talk to, I have the same message for Bitcoin. I say, hey, buy and as you educate yourself at the same time, and avoid that excitement feeling that we've all had to go heavy in where you're getting a little bit over your skis. You're using money that you may need in the future. And I mentioned this on your guys' last episode. Just get enough that you don't really care about it, but you have a stake to learn more about it. You have a vested interest. And surprisingly, what happened after this last drop, I got a lot of people that were like, dude, I'm not worried. You said, I just put a little bit in. I haven't lost anything significant that I'm all flipped out about, but I have learned more about this, and I am actually getting more. I'm going more in, not just financially, but like being a part of the network and the community. And that's great. I love that because, as we know, one of the biggest counters for a lot of the people we talk to in the union world is, hey, they always point to this. It was at 60, it dropped to 15. It's a risk. Why would I do that? And you're like, hey, my friend, you're looking at this little box. If you go out here, you'll see the up, down, up, down, up, down, but a steady arrow up. You would never, I would never point to the housing crisis and say real estate is trash because in 2006, it was worth this much. And in 2010, it was worth this much. Let me zoom out from, 1900 to 2023. And you see, valuable things that are worth, their weight and have importance in the world. They're going to trend up. And like you guys said, we're not here to get rich. We're here to build wealth. We want to get stuff for the time. So when I get that kind of response from them, oh man, it makes me so happy. And it's great not to have people come and being like, I had to move my mother-in-law out of the house and I put $35K in because I was supposed to get 70. I tell people, people have even come up sometimes and been like, dude, why are you telling me not to go in on this so heavy when it's so clear that it's a winner? And I go, just, you can do that on your own. If you get there, you're not there. Explain to me what hash rate is. Explain to me, what self-custody is, multi-sig. Explain to me like the real core functions of Bitcoin. Then you're ready, my friend. Until then, like you're gambling still.
Yeah. That's why when we were at this, so we went up and talked at this meetup in Milwaukee. And like one of the points we made was we've pretty much stopped telling new people to buy Bitcoin. We've said, learn about Bitcoin because you can't fully do Bitcoin for anyone. Like you can get them a lot of the way there, but Bitcoin demands something from every participant in some way, shape, or form, understanding and some degree of base technical aptitude to be able to custody it. But that's where people have staying power, is even when they have a basic degree of understanding. They don't need to understand all the ins and outs. But Josh, if we zoom out on all the guys that haven't flinched through this cycle that we're friends with, they all understand Bitcoin. Like the guys that flinched don't understand Bitcoin. The guys that didn't flinch understand Bitcoin. And I think that's pretty accurate down the line. So with understanding comes patience, comes discipline, comes freeing up cash flow and being motivated to accumulate more of this, which I think, by the way, is another key point here. Like financial literacy in the firehouse is pretty damn low, and I guess this is tied into that, but consumption's extremely high. Like I bet I could be off here, but I think debt as a percentage of net worth is probably pretty high in the fire service. And you couple that with just, I mean, that's part of poor saving habits, but that's where you kind of have to zoom out on people and say like, hey, there's more to get in order here than just you learning about Bitcoin and buying some Bitcoin. Like you need to develop the discipline to free up your cash flow and have that vision for your life, because we are suggesting, even beyond Bitcoin, that we're in and increasingly stepping into an unpredictable, volatile, dangerous financial environment. And so in environments like that, we would say this, like as firefighters, if we're going on a really, fucked up call on the roadway or a structure fire, like we need to prioritize safety. The financial environment's dangerous. Firefighters need to prioritize financial safety. There's nothing more safe you can do financially than freeing up your freaking cash flow, spending less than you make. And that habit is significantly lacking. And it has been for me in the past too. That's a learning journey for me. But that does require for some people some radical life change. Maybe you need to move somewhere else. Maybe you need to switch careers and increase your earning capacity. Maybe your wife does need to go back to work. Whatever it is, in this environment, the best way you can protect yourself is spend less than you make and make sure you've got money to buy assets with, Bitcoin included.
Yeah. And on that note, I mean, like you said, Dan, there's basically two avenues you can choose, and it's frugality, which nobody likes. Nobody wants to buy a shittier car. Nobody wants to sell their boat. Nobody wants to buy a smaller house. Or there's increasing your income. So my advice on that avenue would be take chances, but take chances that have very little downside. Start a business that doesn't require you to take out a huge loan to start. Do something like, not landscaping, that's a terrible one because there's a ton of landscapers and it takes a ton of money to start that business. But start something that is very low bar to entry, very high or infinite amount of potential return. So asymmetric return is what you're looking for, just like in any investing.
Additionally, with Bitcoin, find your niche in a very vibrant and very wide open community. There's applications and use that we have not seen yet. And a good friend of mine told me, hey, anytime you can invest in just learning and doing things in the community is a win. Like there, I love to see people get involved, and I love what you guys are doing and like finding where your spot is in education and bringing this to light. And, that's one of the reasons I want to connect unions to Bitcoin so much is I look at the values of both of these things. I look at the missions, and yes, unions have come a long way and gotten a bigger seat at the table, and they're more part of the main kind of infrastructure, but they came from the same place. I mean, the president of the SEIU tweeted the other day, the financial system is rigged against workers. Really? Where's the pension at then? It's down the block. It's down the street from where the hearing's going. And you're like, okay. And so, yeah, I mean, getting folks, I think there's places in Bitcoin for firefighters that they can kind of get excited about, learn about. But like you guys said, spend less, save more, invest in yourself more, and eventually get away from trading time for money, that's the worst business transaction.
And, something else that's worth hitting on that I know the three of us agree with, like Bitcoin can be an insanely simple savings technology. Like in a lot of ways, it's built for a firefighter, a financially disciplined firefighter to just sock money away, preserve value over time, doesn't need to understand all the ins and outs of it. He can just have a basic understanding that it's got the architecture to preserve buying power, and he's going to allocate pick a percentage, 5, 15, whatever percent of his net worth or income to, and he can focus, he or she can focus on what they're passionate about elsewhere, which isn't macroeconomics, finance, and Bitcoin. I think that this technology can do that. Yeah.
Keeping things simple is a very important thing for most people because, as you said, Dan, most people don't have the time to go read the tome that Lynn Alden puts out every quarter, which is amazing. But a lot of people aren't going to read that or read a variety of Bitcoin books. Like, send them in the right direction, get them some basic understanding, have them listen to some really good podcasts, and let them come at their own pace. You can't force this stuff down anyone's throat. If they don't want it, they're not going to get it. And you just hope that you can give them some carrots that will lead them to, the horse to water so it can drink for itself, because you certainly aren't going to make it.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, the things that I called for in the article I wrote, Proof for Workforce, were very easy asks of unions. You know what they were? They were only 3 things. Number 1, connect your members with high quality education that's reliable and trustworthy. And that doesn't have to be the union doing the education. It could be connecting their members with you all. It can be connecting their members with folks at Swan, like trusted, like name brand folks who are committed to the mission. That's number 1. Number 2, just learn about Bitcoin to the point where explore what it would look like to have a very small amount on your balance sheet. Small stuff that you're not going to get beat up by the members and go, hey, we had $1 million in reserves and we put 500,000 into Bitcoin, because we know some people can't handle Bitcoin. They can't take it because they're gambling. But for the long term, if you said, okay, if you have $1 million, put 10,000 in. If it evaporated, would it really hurt? You know, look, CalPERS lost 100 million on the 2 bank collapses. Money gets lost. You can tell members, hey, but we're doing this to get a foot in and become better involved and educated on something that is the future. It is. So that's number 2. Number 3 is explore infrastructure on ways that your union can get involved, whether that's your union running a node, which is very simple, whether it's your union running connecting people with wallet services, or even mining, right? You think of like having a union hall in the Midwest, and
now we're talking, dude.
Yeah, dude. You want to have a union hall, throw a couple of rigs down there, not because you're going to get rich as a union, but because you're a part of something that's trending towards the future, that's gathering support every day, that's thriving, not dying. And those are the 3 asks. That's it. And the biggest number 1 is easy. That's posting on your union website. If you want to learn more about Bitcoin, go here. Number 2, you know, it may work for some people, putting it on the balance sheet. It may not, but it's not necessary. Just explore why you would or why you wouldn't. And number 3, running a node is cheap, costs nothing, and is like something where, God forbid, your members were in a pinch and said, hey, do we have a terminus where we can engage in Bitcoin transactions? Yep. Union has a node at the computer right here. We got you. Come through. We'll help you guys send stuff to each other. In case things did get to that point where they needed it. 3 simple asks that if they understand, it's not asking them much. So,
yeah. And I mean, we are like pack animals, and there's a lot there for the right people. It depends. You can get laughed out of rooms, but there is also a lot of like trust that's built up. Like, I'm guessing at your department, especially with the roles you've played, like there's a lot of people that love and trust and respect you. And so when you come with something that's not that big of an ask, there's a lot of people that are like, here, second that, let's get that done, you know? And even if you start small, like even with the node and the mining ideas, especially for a bigger union, those are small things that more than anything would be educational. You just have a bunch of boomers or clueless people sitting around going, what the fuck is that thing? And why is it significant?
It's a space heater. That's what it is.
Exactly.
The cloak around it.
Yeah, no, it's you know, I want folks to get in on this. You know, I wrote down one of the things you guys emailed is why the working class can benefit from Bitcoin. And I had on there, one of them we already covered was the time for money quote, self-sovereign finance, of course. Negotiating, Josh, you mentioned negotiating. There's a negotiation, I think, coming years in the future for a lot of working groups, and that involves AI and machinery. And there's going to come a time where negotiation looks like this. Hey, Josh, you drive for the truckers union. Mm-hmm. Oh, we got these AI Volvos, man. We don't need you. Now, getting workers in early to own a piece of the infrastructure that I believe will form a foundation of machines and AI. I believe Bitcoin will, because it's the most reliable. It is the future of money. So surely those systems will rely on sound, reliable, trustworthy money to work. You know, sitting at that table as a contributor, as a part of that community, as an owner, you're negotiating much different than being like, hey, we have nothing here. Our pension's jacked up. Sure. We just need your goodwill. So that was one of the things, you know, being in a good position of negotiating by doing some simple stuff early rather than waiting until it's so obvious that, you know, it's just like, hey, it's great. That's a good time to get into, even if in 10 years it becomes so obvious and they go, fine, we'll get in now. But if we know it, why not get in earlier?
Yeah. You just brought up AI, and one thing I want to before we leave here,
1 hour. I thought we were doing 3 hours today.
3 hours
minimum.
Minimum. One thing that I think I've realized more. This is more real for me than it ever was. Reading Jeff Booth's book about deflation and how that's going to affect the future. I really didn't. I don't think I truly understood that until I started realizing how quickly this was happening with like AI systems. When you really mess around with them, you start to see how this thesis makes sense. This technology improving more efficiently, cost of production decreasing, and lowering prices across the board. And then when you understand that, and then you understand how Bitcoin can dovetail into that scenario, is just as you outlined, Dom. Like if these people have a portion of this scarce quantity of units that will be the only ones that ever exist in perpetuity, and the world becomes deflationary, Bitcoin can protect you from that like no other asset can in the world. And if you need any help understanding Jeff Booth's thesis, you need to go play with ChatGPT for a little bit, start asking it questions, start seeing how quickly it can enable you to work better, faster, cheaper. And man, I think Booth was dead on. And, people need to start understanding this stuff. It's not going to become nice to know. It's going to become a necessity very soon.
The other thing that's worth saying, to piggyback on both your comments, is that Bitcoin is so freaking unique for average folks because you have access to it. When you understand how the current financial system works, you realize that the first fruits of the best trades and the best investments generally fall to those that are deeply entrenched in the financial system and close to the money spigot. Okay? Hedge funds, banks, massive brokerages, these institutions and these large-scale investors generally get access to things that the three of us would never have access to, and they bear a lot more fruit than what we can access in a typical Fidelity account, right? That's what makes Bitcoin really unique, is that our working thesis is that this thing is a marvelous asymmetric trade, maybe the most marvelous of anything that exists in the world. And because of its nature, because it's open source and decentralized, everybody has access to it. And that in and of itself is insanely unique, that a firefighter or a Venezuelan farmer or a Ukrainian, whoever, has access to a pristine asset is mind-blowing and extremely exciting and empowering and inclusive.
Yeah. One of the things I think about a lot with firefighters, bringing us back to the firefighters, is the samurai. A lot of similarities between firefighters and the samurai. I'll tell you, the samurai-like firefighters held a very exclusive spot in the highest level of the working classes, very revered. They had armor, right? We have gear. They trained hard. They had a code of ethics. They had a value system. When the Industrial Revolution hit Japan, which was isolationist for a large amount of time, the Japanese got smoked fast, because they were still fighting horseback swords, and then there was a Gatling gun where you just you guys saw the movie with Cruise, bam. There's a lot of parallels there. We're sitting on another industrial revolution with Bitcoin, with AI coming, and here I think firefighters have a long time of value. I don't see us getting replaced by machines. But like you said, Dan, and like you're saying, Josh, it's there, it's powerful, it's coming. Let's get on board. So God forbid in 2050 there's no fires anymore, because there's all the buildings are sprinklered and there is no fires, that we're in a position of strength for our members, and our members don't have to kind of be, stuck with no part of ownership in the future.
Well said. Dom, can you give us a handoff for yourself, or anything you want to talk about before you go?
And tell us which Speedo you're going to be wearing in El Salvador when you go.
Oh, man.
Or can you put it on for us?
Yeah. I'm going to be writing a lot about El Salvador. My goal is I'm only bringing Bitcoin. So if I can't do a transaction, then I'll be hunting and fishing somewhere on the land and finding something. But
or just begging at the local firehouse,
Yeah, exactly. I'm only there for like 5 days, so I can go without like food. I just need water for 5 days. I can make it. So I'm going to be writing about that, though, getting some content, things like that. I'm still working. Are you guys going to Pacific in 23?
We're planning to, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm working on a panel and it's going to be that kind of proof of workforce. So I think we have to get you guys on there for sure. That's, I'm working on that. I'm talking to Corey. I have some people on the union side that are solid. So that'd be a great panel just to talk, just to keep it very non-committal, like talk about issues and things like that. Great.
We're all about non-committal.
Yeah. That's like turning down that alley on that structure fire where the address is wrong. You're like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. All right, send it. Oh, dead end. We're done, dude. We're out. Other than that, always great coming on here, talking with y'all. Looking forward to just diving in more and more into the Bitcoin community every day. That is the part that excites me the most, more than whatever price Bitcoin is at. I love the community. I love the innovation, and just a great time to be alive right now.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, it is.
We appreciate you, brother. Thanks for dedicating an hour.
I try to get sharper every time I come on. Versus last time I was just a space cadet, dude, just in there like, throw a couple things. But like, dude, I'm telling you, Bitcoin makes folks smarter. Word to the wise out there, even if you don't invest. So,
hey, we're a couple clowns just like you, dude, and we agree this protocol stretches the mind. It's amazing how many places this thing takes you. It's wonderful.
I still know when we get up on spaces and stuff and we're talking finance, like the Joes, the Lins of the world are like, who let these clowns up talking finance? Like, dude, you don't even know what you're talking about.
I feel exceedingly dumb around either one of those people.
Honestly. Oh, yeah.
Like, it's,
me too.
But it's good to know they say be the dumbest person in the room, right? And you're in the right room. So
exactly.
Amen to that. So
yeah, none of us have to worry about being the smartest guy,
not
right?
them. Yeah.
Yeah. Dom, thanks, man.
Appreciate you, dude.
Pleasure. Talk to y'all soon.
Yep.